So for more reaction and insight, we now welcome to studio Brigadier General in the Reserves, Israel Relik Shafir, former commander at the Tel Nof Air Force Base and former combat pilot at the Israeli Air Force, and Mark Shulman, editor-in-chief at History Central and a columnist at Newsweek. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for being here. So Antony Blinken is cautiously optimistic about this hostage truce deal. Hamas saying it will probably respond tomorrow. That's the latest update. Relik, I'm going to start with you. Your assessment, your sense of optimism over a potential deal, day 208 of the war.
I would like to provide a sense of realism rather than optimism. I think Hamas will not take the deal. It's not good enough in the way that it sees it, and it sees that Israel is under pressure. It hasn't been able to, or we haven't been able to provide a solid program of what happens the day after. How do we remove or move aside 1.5 million Palestinians from Rafah, or at least provide a plan where they are out of harm's way while we chase the Hamas terrorists in the tunnels. Blinken just said a week ago that Israel hasn't provided a viable plan yet. So they know they have enough time. Meanwhile, our extreme right are explaining to the enemies of Israel that they want to resettle Gaza, which actually gives them more munition against Israel, saying that Israel is actually interested in conquering Gaza and in a colonial move. So the conflicts within the Israeli government are so severe that they hurt Israel's interests within and outside of Israel. And so we're in a dire strait as far as that is concerned. And Hamas have shown that they were very good in manipulating these moves for their own sake. And it looks like just another step in that direction.
And Hamas is holding all the cards right now.
Absolutely.
Mark.
We're holding no cards at this point. We've given them more aid than they possibly need. I mean, I've never bought that there's hunger in Gaza Strip, certainly not with the amount of aid we were providing before, and certainly not now. To talk about hunger is really absurd with the amount of aid that's going in. But the world has bought that. On top of which, we have almost no troops in Gaza. We have no levers in Gaza. And the Rafiq operation, I mean, we've made this into this big thing that will end Hamas. But realistically, we spent 4 months in Khan Yunis, and we killed a lot of Hamas fighters. But that was it. And there's no reason to think we'd be any more successful in Rafiq. They're not going to sit around and wait for us to show up there. We don't control the rest of the Gaza Strip, so they can easily move from one place to the other. So they're holding the cards. It's not clear what they're going to hold out for, but at the moment, we have very little chance of having any leverage over them. Now, there's a slight chance they'll take the deal. I don't think it's zero, because they're not going to give up all the hostages. They're only going to give up the elderly, and the sick, and some of the women. And so they might take the deal, A, because they don't want to control them anymore. It's probably going to be hard to keep them moving around and dealing with them. They'd rather not have them die on them. It's bad PR to have an 85-year-old man die on them. So they might take this deal. They might. But I wouldn't bet on it, let's put it that way. But I still think we might wake up and see that they're willing to take the deal if Israel does X, Y, and Z. And then it's going to be a question whether Netanyahu is going to decide whether he wants the deal, which means no government, which means elections, because he won't be able to take the deal and hold his right wing. Will he take the strategic deal that Blinken and Biden have been talking about with the Saudis? But that means, again, losing his right wing. And of course, up to now, we've seen Netanyahu not making those hard choices. He's gone with whatever's safe for him and being in the government. So that's where we stand. It's not in the best place, to say the least.
Antony Blinken says Hamas is the only reason the deal won't be achieved. We know, of course, Yahya Sinwar is somewhere in a tunnel, potentially, or somewhere in the Gaza Strip. It's not clear where, as we're saying. He is sitting with the cards right now. Where is the pressure on Hamas to reach a deal? We're talking about the pressure that Antony Blinken is putting on Israel to make sure more and more aid is coming into the Gaza Strip. We saw the trucks earlier on in the day. Where is the pressure on Hamas, and who is putting the most pressure? Is it Egypt right now? Is it Qatar? Tell us more.
Well, I think there's really no pressure on Sinwar because he's sitting in his tunnels, guarded by 1.5 million refugees who are spread over a small area, so that he knows that he has weeks before he has to worry about the outcome. So he doesn't. He's bought himself some time.
He's also got hostages presumably nearby.
Obviously, and the only pressure that can be brought upon on the Hamas leaders in Qatar itself. They started talking about ousting them. They sent a balloon saying that they will move to Jordan. The kingdom said no way. So they're playing around with all kinds of ideas. But the pressure can be put on Hamas, on the outside leaders of Hamas. But Sinwar is calling the game now. And through a series of blunders, I'm sorry to say, on our side, he's got, there's no leverage on him at this time.
Because, look, we don't have an alternative strategic plan. If we had a strategic plan and said, we're going to implement X, Y, and Z, whatever it would be, whether it's the Palestinian Authority, some new force that we created, something, this was the plan we have, and we're going to take them to occupy all of Gaza, not us, but some other group. If we had a plan like that, that would put some pressure because he doesn't want that, obviously. But we don't have another plan. We're not presenting another plan. We don't have a plan for ourselves. So with no plan, all we have is international pressure. All we have is domestic turmoil at this point. If I'm Sinwar, I mean, I'm going to sit there and let the domestic turmoil go further. Now, on the other hand, I might be, if I'm Sinwar, I'm going to say, wait a second, I can bring down this government. Now, I'm not sure whether he wants to bring down this government or not. But if he says yes, he could create a different sort of turmoil here in Israel. So, you know, he knows he has his own expectations of Israel. Unfortunately, we've met his expectations all too often in the last 7 months. We need to play in a different playbook, and we're not succeeding.
Very briefly.
There is one very important element that militarily Hamas never thought that we would bring Hamas down the way we have in these 7 months. This must be said. And this is a clear threat and warning to the Hezbollah in the north. And the fact that a coalition was created, never mind who and how, was created against Iran and the Houthis in the south. They've made a lot of mistakes as well. So internationally, the idea of creating this southern belt of moderate Arab states with Israel against Iran and Russia is very much on the table, very much an interest of the United States. And it just remains for the Israeli government to do what's right and not listen to the extreme right who are trying to actually crumble Israeli policy.
It's so much in our strategic interests.